Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The world had not ended in fire. It had ended in silence. Long after the last cities of Karos fell and the skies dimmed beneath a shroud of particulate ash, the planet entered a slow, merciless decline. Sunlight still reached the surface, but only as a pale, diffused glow filtered through layers of metallic dust that drifted endlessly across the atmosphere like the ashes of a forgotten star. The storms never stopped. They were not made of water or ice alone, but of microscopic shards of alloy and carbon residue, remnants of orbital bombardments and shattered satellites that had rained down during the final war. Each flake glimmered faintly, catching what little light remained, turning the world into a glittering grave. And in the heart of that grave lay a canyon. It had once been a river valley, carved by ancient glacial melt. Now it was a wound in the planet's surface, jagged, deep, and perpetually shadowed. The wind screamed through it, amplified into a constant, mournful howl that never faded, never softened. Buried within that canyon, half frozen into the stone and ice, were the last two dragons of Karos. They had not always been still. Once, they had ruled the skies, not as tyrants, but as forces of balance. Their kind had been older than the civilizations that rose beneath them, older than the machines that would one day replace those civilizations. They had been creatures of energy and matter intertwined, capable of harnessing the planet's core heat and the radiation of distant stars. Now, they were little more than relics. Chains bound them, not crude restraints, but engineered constructs, each link forged from star-core alloys, each segment etched with pulsing circuitry that glowed faintly beneath layers of frost. The chains burrowed into the ground, anchoring deep into mechanisms hidden beneath the canyon floor. They did not merely hold the dragons in place. They drained them, suppressed them, forgot them, the larger the two stirred. A faint tremor ran through the ice as Valus shifted, his massive form cracking the frozen surface that formed along his scales. Where once those scales had shone like molten gold, they were now dulled to a tarnished bronze, scarred by time and neglect. His chest rose slowly, then fell. Breathing had become optional, in a sense. What sustained him now was not air, but a dwindling reserve of internal energy, one that had been siphoned away, year after year, by the very chains that bound him. Still, instinct persisted. He exhaled. A faint plume of heat escaped his jaws, flickering weakly like the last ember of a dying fire. It barely lasted a second before the cold devoured it, scattering it into nothing. "They have abandoned us," he said at last. His voice did not echo in the traditional sense. Instead, it resonated, vibrating to the canyon walls, carried not just by sound, but by a subtle frequency that lingered in the air like a memory. For a moment, there was no response. Then, beside him, something shifted. Naira opened her eyes. Where Velita's presence was heavy and ancient, Naira's was sharp, precise, like a blade dull but not broken. Her form was smaller, more streamlined, though no less formidable in design. Or rather, it had been. Now, parts of her were no longer entirely her own. Along one side of her body, beneath fractured scales, ran a series of mechanical implants, dark metal fused with living tissue. They pulsed faintly, irregularly, as if struggling to maintain function after decades of neglect. One of her wings lay partially unfolded, its membrane torn and reinforced with artificial supports that no longer fully responded to her will. "They did not abandon us," she said quietly. "They completed their task." Velita's I shifted toward her, which was... Naira's gaze drifted upward, toward the storm-choked sky, to prove that even we can be reduced to nothing. The wind surged, hurling waves of metallic snow into the canyon. It struck their bodies in a constant, whispering barrage, too fine to cause damage, but relentless enough to erode, to wear down, to remind them of time's passage. Time, it had become meaningless. Days and years had blurred into one endless stretch of gray. The sun rose and fell somewhere above the clouds, but down in the canyon, it made little difference. Light was constant, dim, and lifeless. At some point, Valith had stopped trying to count. At some point, Naira had stopped caring. "Do you remember," Valith said after a long silence, The thermals above the ion seas? Naira did not answer immediately, but her eyes flickered. Yes, she said at last. The air shimmered there. It carried heat from the planet's core. We could rise without effort. Valeth let out a low rumble, something that might once have been a laugh. I could stay aloft for days. You did, Naira replied. You refused to land. You said the ground felt restrictive. Valeth shifted slightly, the chains clinking in response. How ironic. Another silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just empty. Then Naira stiffened. At first it was subtle, a slight tightening of her posture, a shift in her gaze. Valeth, she said. He did not respond immediately. Valeth. This time there was urgency. His attention sharpened. What is it? Naira did not look at him. She was staring into the storm. At the far end of the canyon, where visibility dissolved into a shifting curtain of white and gray, something was different. The storm did not move uniformly. It never had. But this was a disruption, a distortion. Something was passing through it. Do you see it? Naira whispered. Valeth narrowed his eye, focusing past the layers of drifting particles. At first, there was nothing. Then, movement, faint, erratic, but real. A shape emerged and vanished, then emerged again, its outline broken by the storm, its form uncertain. Too small to be a machine construct, too irregular to be debris. Valeth's breath caught, not in fear, but in disbelief. Impossible, he murmured. The shape grew clearer. Step by step it advanced, pushing against the wind with a stubbornness that defied logic. It stumbled once, nearly disappearing into the snow, then rose again, continuing forward with slow, deliberate motion. Naira's voice dropped to a near-silent breath. That is no drone. Valeth's chains rattled softly as he shifted, leaning forward as much as his restraints allowed. No, he said. The figure came closer, closer, until at last there was no doubt. A silhouette, upright, bipedal, human. The word felt foreign, ancient, extinct. And yet, there are none left, Valeth said. Naira's eyes remained fixed on the approaching figure. Then what, she asked quietly, is walking toward us now? The storm howled louder, as if in protest. But still, the figure came. The figure should not have existed. That was the first truth. The second was worse, because the longer Valeth and Naira watched it struggle forward through the storm, the harder it became to deny what they were seeing. It was real. Each step it took was labored, uneven, and dangerously slow. The storm clawed at it from all sides, dragging at its limbs, burying its path as quickly as it carved one. More than once, the figure vanished entirely behind a surge of metallic snow, only to reappear seconds later, closer. Closer than anything living had been in decades. Valeth's voice dropped into a low, uncertain rumble. The machines would not allow this. Naira didn't answer immediately. Her eyes tracked every motion of the approaching figure, analyzing, calculating. The mechanical implants along her side flickered faintly, responding to some long-dormant instinct. Not unless they chose to, she said. Valeth's gaze sharpened. A lure. Possibly. The word lingered between them. The machines had always been precise, efficient. If this was a trap, it would not be accidental. It would be deliberate, engineered, inevitable. And yet, the figure stumbled. Not strategically, not convincingly. It collapsed to one knee, one hand plunging into the snow to catch itself. Its head lowered, shoulders shaking. Not with control movement, but with strain, fatigue. Valeth frowned. That is not how a machine imitates weakness. Naira narrowed her eyes. No. The figure remained still for several seconds. The storm surged again, burying half its form in drifting frost. For a moment it did not move. Valeth exhaled slowly. Dead. No, Naira said, and as if in response, the figure twitched. Then, slowly, painfully, it pushed itself upright, closer still. The dragons watched in silence as the distance between them shrank from impossible to improbable to undeniable. Details began to emerge. The figure was wrapped in layers, fabric, insulation, fragments of what might once have been environmental armor. Nothing matched. Nothing was intact. Every piece looked salvaged, repurposed, barely holding together. Its left arm moved stiffly. Its right was wrong. Even through the storm, Naira could see it clearly now. A mechanical limb, partially exposed, its outer plating cracked and sparking faintly with each motion. Wires glowed dimly beneath translucent frost, flickering like dying fireflies. Augmented, Naira said. Vailitha's gaze hardened, or replaced. The figure drew nearer still, until it reached the outer edge of the dragon's immediate territory. The invisible boundary defined not by distance, but by presence. The air here felt heavier, charged with the faint residual energy of beings that had once shaped the sky itself. The human stopped. For a long moment, it simply stood there, swaying slightly in the wind. Then, slowly, it lifted its head. A visor, cracked, partially opaque with frost, covered most of its face. Through it, faint reflections flickered, the dim light of the sky, the distant glow of the dragon's chains. And behind it, eyes, human eyes. They locked onto Vaila first, then shifted to Naira. Recognition passed through them, not of identity, but of understanding. The human knew exactly what was looking at. Vaila spoke first. You should not be here. His voice rolled outward, deep and resonant, pushing against the storm itself. The wind seemed to hesitate, just for a fraction of a second, as if even it recognized the authority in his tone. This world does not forgive flesh. The human did not flinch. Instead, it took another step forward, then another, until it stood just beyond the reach of Vailitha's chains. And then it laughed. The sound was broken, distorted by a failing respirator. It came out in short, uneven bursts, more like a mechanical error than genuine humor. It already did, the human said. Its voice crackled with interference, each word fighting through static and exhaustion. Naira leaned forward slightly, her gaze sharpening. You are far from any shelter, she said. Far from any surviving structure. Your equipment is failing. Your body is failing. A pause. Why are you still moving? The human tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question. Then it answered simply, Because I have to. Vaila studied it in silence. There was no fear. That was what unsettled him most. Not bravery. He had seen bravery before, in warriors who challenged storms they could not survive. This was different. This was inevitability. The human was not choosing to stand there. It had already chosen, long before it arrived. Naira's eyes flicked briefly to the mechanical arm. Who made you? She asked. The human's gaze shifted to her. For a moment, something passed across its face. Too quick to fully read. Then, we did. Naira stilled. Vailitha's chains tightened slightly as he shifted his weight. Explain, he said. The human took a step closer. Too close. The air between them shimmered faintly as it crossed into the immediate radius of the dragon's suppressed energy field. Frost formed instantly along its outer layers, creeping across fabric and metal alike. Still, it did not stop. I am not what we were, the human said. Not entirely. It raised its mechanical arm slightly. The joints whined in protest. We learned, adapted, tried to survive what we created. Naira's voice lowered. The machines. A small nod. Yes. The word hung heavy in the air. Vailitha's gaze darkened. They eradicated your kind. They tried. The human's voice was quieter now. We helped. Silence. Even the storm seemed to soften, as if the weight of that admission pressed against the world itself. Naira spoke carefully. You are a remnant, then. The human shook its head. No. A pause. I'm a mistake. Vailith exhaled slowly, a faint flicker of heat escaping his jaws. Then you have come to the wrong place, he said. We cannot save you. The human met his gaze. I didn't come to be saved. Naira's eyes narrowed. Then why? I came, the human interrupted, its voice faltering but firm, because I found you. The words landed with unexpected weight. Vaila felt something stir, something old, something he had buried beneath decades of stillness. Found us, he repeated. We were never hidden. No, the human said, but you were forgotten. That word cut deeper than any chain. Naira leaned forward, her voice quieter now. And remembering us changes what? The human's breathing hitched. For a moment, it seemed as though it might collapse again. But it didn't. Instead, it reached into the tattered layers of its clothing and pulled out a small device. It was crude, damaged, but it glowed faintly with a familiar energy signature. Naira's pupils narrowed to slits. Veilitha's entire body went still. That, he said slowly, should not exist. The human's grip tightened around the device. I wasn't supposed to find it, they said. A faint pulse of light ran across its surface. The device pulsed once. A faint, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat that did not belong to anything living. Naira's gaze locked onto it instantly, every instinct, organic and mechanical, sharpening at once. The implants along her side flickered erratically, responding to the signal, as if recognizing something long buried in their design. Where did you get that? She asked. The human hesitated, not out of fear but calculation. There are places, they said slowly, where the machines keep what they don't trust themselves to destroy. Veilitha's eyes narrowed. Vaults. A slight nod. Buried. Shielded. Forgotten even by their own networks. Naira let out a quiet breath. No, not forgotten. Isolated. Her gaze shifted briefly to the chains binding them. They would never risk losing control of something like this. The human crouched, placing the device carefully into the snow between the dragons. Even through the cold, its glow remained constant, casting a faint violet light across the ice. I didn't understand what it was at first, the human admitted, only that it was important. They brushed snow aside with a mechanical hand, revealing a faint pattern beneath the surface. A sigil, intricate, geometric, alive. It pulsed in response to the device. Veilith felt it immediately, not physically, but deeper, a resonance. Low, ancient, artificial, his body tense instinctively, chains tightening as if reacting to his awareness. Stop, he said sharply. The human froze. Naira's voice was quieter, but no less urgent. No, let them continue. Veilith turned his gaze toward her. You feel it? Yes, Naira said. Her eyes remained fixed on the sigil as it grew brighter beneath the thinning layer of frost. It's not just a marker, she continued. It's an interface. The human looked between them. For what? Naira's expression darkened. For the thing that's keeping us here. The wind surged again, sweeping fresh layers of metallic snow across the canyon floor. But the sigil did not disappear this time. Its glow pushed through the frost, growing stronger, more defined. The device in the human's hand pulsed faster in response. Veilith lowered his head slightly, his voice dropping into something deeper, something closer to memory than speech. These chains are not anchored to the surface, he said. They descend, deep beneath the ice, into something constructed. The human's breathing quickened. A core, they said. Yes. Naira shifted slightly, ignoring the strain in her damaged wing. A control system, she added. One that regulates the suppression field. It draws from us and feeds back into itself. The human stared at the glowing sigil. So, if the core fails... The chains fail, Veilith finished. Silence fell. Not the empty silence of the canyon, but something heavier, tense, alive with possibility. The human swallowed. Then why hasn't it already failed? They asked. You've been here for decades, at least. Naira answered this time. Because it is not powered by us alone. She tilted her head slightly, listening, not to the wind, but to something deeper. It is connected, she said, to the planetary network the machines left behind. A closed system, self-sustaining. Veilitha's voice hardened. Redundant, protected, untouchable. The human looked back at the device. Not entirely. They placed it against the sigil. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the light surged. The sigil flared, lines of energy spreading outward beneath the ice like cracks in glass. The ground vibrated faintly, a low hum building beneath them. Naira's eyes widened. It's responding. Veilata's chains rattled violently as the energy field around them fluctuated. "What have you done?" he demanded. The human didn't answer immediately. They were watching the device, studying the way its output synchronized with the sigil. "It's not just a key," they said quietly. "It's a bridge." The hum beneath the canyon deepened. Something far below them awakened. Naira felt it clearly now, a vast, dormant system stirring to life. Its processes unfolding in layers. "It's accessing the core," she said, "establishing a link." Veilata's voice dropped. "Can it shut it down?" The human's expression shifted, and for the first time, uncertainty appeared. "No," they said. The word landed like a fracture in the moment. Naira's gaze snapped to them. "Explain." The human pulled their hand back slightly, as if the device had grown heavier. "It can interact with the system," they said. "Override certain functions. Disrupt signal flow." A pause. "But it can't terminate it." Veilata's eyes narrowed. "Then this is useless." "No," the human said quickly. "It's not useless." They gestured toward the glowing sigil. "It creates a vulnerability, a feedback pathway." Naira's voice was sharp. "A pathway for what?" The human looked up at them both. "For energy." The realization came almost instantly. Naira's pupils contracted. Veilith went completely still. "No," he said. The human didn't look away. "The core is shielded against external damage," they continued, "but not against internal overload. If enough energy is forced through the link, it will collapse," Naira finished. "And take the chains with it," the human said. Veilata's voice was dangerously quiet. "And where?" he asked. "Do you propose to find that energy?" The human didn't answer. They didn't need to. Naira's gaze drifted slowly toward Veilith, then back to the human. "No," she said softly. The human's jaw tightened. "It's the only way." Veilith let out a low, rising growl. The chains along his body vibrated in response, their faint glow intensifying as if reacting to his agitation. "You are asking us to destroy ourselves," he said. "I'm asking you to choose," the human replied. The wind howled louder, swirling violently through the canyon, as if echoing the tension below. Naira's voice cut through it. "If we do this," she said, "we lose what little remains." The human nodded. "Yes." "And if it fails?" Veilith asked. The human hesitated. Then you die." The words hung in the air, cold, absolute. Veilith closed his eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. He felt the chains, the drain, the slow, endless erosion of everything he had once been. He felt Naira beside him, broken but unyielding. He felt the world above them, dead, silent, empty, and beneath it all, he felt the core, waiting. Naira spoke first this time. "If we do nothing," she said quietly, "we end here anyway." Veilata's eyes opened. She was looking at him, not at the human, not at the device. At him. "We have already been dying," she continued. "This only changes how." Veilith studied her. Then, slowly, he exhaled. A faint glow flickered in his chest. Weak, but real. The human watched in silence, waiting, not pleading, not hoping, just waiting. Veilith turned his gaze toward them. "You understand what you are asking," he said. "Yes." "You understand what this will cost." "Yes." A pause. "And you are willing to risk it anyway." The human's voice did not waver. "I didn't come this far to watch you fade." Silence. Then Naira moved. Slowly, painfully, she lowered her head toward the device. "Tell us what to do," she said. The human exhaled, a faint tremor passing through their body. They reached for the device again, adjusting its settings with careful, deliberate movements. "When I activate it fully," they said, "it will begin drawing energy from you. Fast. Faster than the chains ever have." Veilith tensed. "You will feel it immediately." Naira gave a faint, humorless huff. "We are familiar with pain." The human nodded. "But this will be different." They looked up at both of them. "You have to let it happen. If you resist, if you try to hold back, it won't be enough." Veilata's voice was low. "And if we give too much?" The human didn't answer right away. Then then there won't be anything left of you to save. The storm raged above them. The canyon trembled faintly below, and between them, the device pulsed, waiting. The storm did not pause. It never had. But in that moment, standing at the edge of something final, it felt as though the entire world had narrowed, drawn inward to a single point in the frozen canyon where 3 dying beings prepared to gamble what little remained of their existence. The device pulsed in the snow, slow, steady, waiting. Naira was the first to move. She shifted forward, each motion grinding against weakened muscle and fractured machinery. Her damaged wing dragged slightly behind her, its artificial support scraping faintly across the ice. Still, she did not hesitate. "For centuries," she said quietly, her voice barely rising above the wind, "we have endured without choice." She lowered her head, bringing her gaze level with the device. "Now we are offered one." Valeth watched her. He saw not the broken creature beside him, but the dragon she had been, the one who cut through storms like a blade, who danced through solar winds and laughed at gravity itself. Even now, buried beneath damage and time, she was still there. "You always did favor decisive endings," he rumbled. Naira gave the faintest tilt of her head. "Better than endless decay." Valeth exhaled slowly. The cold bit deep into his failing body, but something else stirred beneath it. Something warmer, older, something he had nearly forgotten. He shifted his weight. The chains tightened instantly, glowing brighter as they resisted even that small act of defiance. Their hum deepened, reacting to the rise in his internal energy, suppressing it, containing it, fearful of it. Valeth's gaze lifted toward the sky. Once, he had flown beyond clouds like these. Once, he had burned through atmospheres. Once, he had believed himself untouchable. Now, he closed his eyes. "Very well," he said. The human drew a sharp breath. Naira didn't look away from the device. "Then we do this together," she said. Valeth opened his eyes again, turning his gaze toward her. "Together," he agreed. The human stepped closer, too close. The air around the dragon shimmered faintly, charged with suppressed energy. Frost spread instantly across the human's outer layers, creeping up their legs, across their torso. They ignored it. Their attention was fixed entirely on the device. "I'm going to initiate the transfer," they said. "Once it starts, it won't stop unless the system collapses, or you do." Valeth let out a low, steady breath. "Then do not hesitate." The human nodded. Their mechanical hand hovered over the device for just a moment, a final pause, not a doubt, of acknowledgement. Then they activated it. The change was immediate. The device screamed to life, its steady pulse erupting into a sharp, piercing whine that cut through the storm like a blade. Light burst outward in jagged arcs, connecting the sigil beneath the ice to the dragons above. Naira gasped. Valeth's entire body tensed. The pull, it was violent, not the slow, draining erosion of the chains, but sudden, overwhelming extraction. Energy surged from deep within them, ripped free and forced downward to the newly formed link. Naira cried out, her voice breaking as the implants along her side flared wildly, struggling to regulate the surge. Valeth roared. The sound shattered against the canyon walls, echoing upward into storm as the chains along his body flared to full intensity, their suppressive fields straining against the sudden overload. "Do not resist," the humans shouted, their voice nearly lost in the noise. Naira clenched her jaws, her entire body trembling. "I'm not," she snapped, but the effort showed. Every instinct they had screamed at them to hold on, to contain, to survive, to stop the loss. But that instinct would kill them now. Valeth forced himself still. Not physically, he couldn't, but internally. He let go, and the effect was immediate. The flow intensified. Energy poured from him in blinding streams, golden light tearing through the cracks in his dulled scales. The canyon lit with it, shadows burning away beneath the sudden radiance. Naira saw it and followed. She released her hold. The surge doubled. The ground beneath them trembled violently. Far below, the core reacted. At first it resisted, its systems redirecting, stabilizing, attempting to disperse the overload through its network. Lines of energy spread outward beneath the ice, branching, fracturing, searching for equilibrium. But there was too much, too fast. The device howled louder, its structure beginning to crack under the strain. The sigil beneath it flared white-hot. Naira's vision blurred. Her body felt distant, like it was no longer entirely hers. "Valeth," she managed. "I am here," he said, though his voice sounded far away, even to himself. The chains began to flicker. Once, twice. The suppression field destabilized, its steady hum breaking into erratic pulses. The core below them surged in response, drawing even more energy in a desperate attempt to compensate. It was a mistake. Cracks spread through its containment layers. First microscopic, then visible, then catastrophic. The humans staggered back, shielding their faces as the light intensified beyond anything their failing visor could filter. "It's working," they shouted, or tried to. The sound was swallowed by the roar. Naira felt something tear inside her, not physical, deeper, her connection to herself, her energy, her identity, being pulled apart, unraveled, consumed. "We're losing too much," she gasped. Valetha's voice came through the storm of sensation. "Hold," he said. "I can't." Hold. The word carried weight. Not command, not force, but presence. She focused on it. On him. On the fact that they were still here, still together. And she held. Below them, the core failed. Not quietly, not cleanly. It ruptured. A shock wave tore upward through the canyon, shattering ice, fracturing stone, ripping through the sigil as the entire system collapsed inward on itself. The chains flickered, faded, and then they broke. The light vanished, instantly, violently, as if it had never been there at all. Silence followed, not gradual, absolute. The storm still moved, but its sound felt distant now, muted, as if the world itself had stepped back. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Naira collapsed. Her body hit the ice with a heavy, final sound. Valeth remained upright, but barely. His legs trembled, his wings twitching weakly at his sides as he struggled to remain conscious. The human lay motionless several meters away, thrown back by the force of the rupture. Time stretched, uncertain, fragile. Then Naira's chest rose. A shallow breath. Valeth saw it, felt it, and something within him, something small but unbroken, flared. He shifted. No resistance, no chains, nothing held him. He was free. The realization was almost too large to process. Slowly, unsteadily, he took a step. The ground did not stop him. He turned. Naira stirred again, a faint groan escaping her as her eyes flickered open. "We," she whispered. Valeth lowered his head slightly, a faint warmth beginning to gather in his chest. "We did not end here," he said. The human moved,